The sound of crying echoed through the hospital corridor before anyone even saw what had happened. A heavily pregnant woman, clutching her stomach and gasping for air, staggered backward as another woman in a royal blue dress yanked her hair with a furious scream. Nurses froze in shock. A few patients looked on from their wheelchairs. And for a few seconds, time itself seemed to stop. The woman in the hospital gown, her face pale and drenched in tears, was not just any patient. She was about to give birth, and the one attacking her was the mistress of her husband, a woman who had waited too long to take revenge for a love she could never truly own. But what the mistress didn't know was that this pregnant woman, this quiet, humble soul, had a father whose very name could silence an entire city. If you believe that kindness and second chances can still change the world, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. These stories remind us that strength often hides behind the softest hearts. Her name was Sienna Hull, a 28-year-old woman who had once dreamed of a peaceful life with her husband, Jordan. They had met years ago before wealth and ambition turned him into someone she barely recognized. Sienna had come from a simple background. Her father, Arthur, had left when she was young, or so she thought. Her mother told her he was a man who couldn't handle responsibility. That story had shaped her entire life. She learned to be strong alone, to love quietly, to forgive too easily. When she fell in love with Jordan, she thought she'd finally found someone who would protect her heart. But even during her pregnancy, when her emotions were most fragile, he began to drift away. Distant phone calls, late nights, and perfume that wasn't hers on his collar. Then one day, she discovered the truth. Jordan was having an affair with a woman named Mara Steele, a glamorous executive with beauty that demanded attention and a pride that refused to share. Mara had everything Sienna didn't: the looks, the connections, and the arrogance of someone who believed money meant power. When Sienna confronted Jordan, he didn't deny it. Instead, he said coldly that Mara understood him better. He left the house that night, leaving Sienna alone, heartbroken and still months away from giving birth. Weeks later, Sienna began to have complications. Her doctor advised bed rest, and with trembling hands, she checked herself into a private hospital, hoping to find some peace before the baby came. She didn't know Mara knew about it, or that jealousy had driven her to the edge of cruelty. That afternoon, as sunlight poured through the glass hospital entrance, Sienna was waiting for a nurse to bring her medication. Her back ached, her contractions were irregular, but she was strong. She whispered softly to her unborn child, promising safety. But that promise was shattered when Mara stormed in, her heels clicking sharply on the floor, her eyes full of hatred. Without warning, Mara grabbed her hair and screamed accusations, calling her weak, pathetic, undeserving. "You think you can keep him with that baby?" she shouted, pulling so hard that Sienna screamed in pain. The commotion drew attention immediately, but before the nurses could intervene, a man in a dark overcoat stepped forward. Tall, silver-haired, his voice low, but thunderous with authority. "Enough," he said. The air changed. The nurses froze, not from fear, but from respect, because they recognized the man, Arthur Vaughan. One of the most powerful businessmen in the city, a man whose word could ruin empires. But to Sienna, that name meant nothing. She didn't recognize him. Not yet. Arthur's eyes softened the moment he saw her face, the same innocent eyes as her mother's. Decades ago, his heart broke. He had spent years searching for the daughter he lost after a bitter divorce. Years regretting his mistakes, and here she was, pregnant, crying, being attacked, his daughter, the one he had failed to protect. He moved closer, and took Sienna's trembling hand as hospital staff pulled Mara away. "No one," Arthur said coldly, his voice echoing through the hall, "touches my family again." Mara turned, laughing bitterly, still unaware of who she had crossed. "Your family," she spat. This poor, pitiful woman. But when she looked around and saw the hospital director bowing his head, the security guards stepping aside, and even the nurses standing at attention, her smile faded. Arthur nodded to his assistant, who whispered something into a phone. Within minutes, reporters and cameras began to gather outside. By the time the police arrived, Mara was in handcuffs, her reputation already dissolving in real time as Arthur's legal team began their work. Jordan showed up soon after, sweating, panicked, trying to plead. But Arthur didn't even look at him. He walked straight to Sienna, gently touching her shoulder. "You're safe now," he said softly. She looked up at him through tears, confused, but comforted. Then when the doctor arrived to rush her to the delivery room, Arthur whispered, "I'll be right here, sweetheart. I promise." That night, as rain fell outside and the city lights blurred against the hospital windows, Sienna gave birth to a healthy baby boy. She held him in her arms and cried quietly, not just from pain, but from the peace she hadn't felt in years. When Arthur came in later, he stood silently by the door, watching her rock the newborn. Finally, she looked up and asked the question that had been trembling on her lips all night. "Who are you?" Arthur smiled sadly. "Someone who should have never left. Someone who's proud of you, Sienna." It took her a moment, but when she saw the resemblance in his eyes, her tears flowed again. She wasn't alone anymore. Weeks later, news spread like wildfire. Mara Steele had been banned from every major company partnership after assaulting the daughter of Arthur Vaughan. Jordan's career was ruined and his reputation collapsed overnight. But Sienna, she became the quiet strength behind a powerful man's change. Arthur had given her and her baby a new life, not through money, but through love. He moved her into a peaceful home surrounded by gardens and warmth, and promised that this time he would never disappear. And every evening when she looked at her son sleeping, she whispered the same words. "You are loved. You are safe. You will never know the pain I did." If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. It helps us keep sharing real emotional stories that remind the world that compassion still wins. Before you go, tell us in the comments, do you believe forgiveness can truly heal even the deepest wounds? Because in the end, what saved Sienna wasn't revenge, nor wealth. It was love finding its way home again.